back of the rim. Got it! Oh, the slam! Oh, here's a Curry way downtown. Oh, what a shot from Curry!
My original predictions: Warriors in 6, Suns in 6, Heat in 5, Celtics in 7. The actual result: Warriors in 6, Mavericks in 7. Heat in 6, Celtics in 7. So this Warrior series did end up going 6. I guess just once they lost Ja Morant, it didn't feel as meaningful as it would have. Not that the Grizzlies weren't still competitive. Hell, they almost got it to 7, and they played great without Ja the entire season. I guess it just felt like a really uphill battle, specifically at the end of some of those close games where you could tell they were missing him. And at least for me personally, it took the wind out of it a bit, because I'd been waiting for Ja versus Steph the entire season. Y'all remember I made that video probably 2 or 3 months ago, had been anticipating this in the second round for a while, so to see one of the headliners go out, it was a bit deflating. Even with that, I can't say that it didn't live up to the hype. I had Warriors in 6. That's what we got. And as everyone was there, boy, it's just, this was a nasty series. The taunting, the suspensions, the fouls, and yeah, the close games. I would have liked to have seen it gone 7 with Ja Morant there. And I'm already plotting this one for next year, as long as the Grizzlies have a solid offseason and both teams are healthy going into 2023. I can say now that the series has happened, I still feel the same as when I originally made that video. Basically, it was a comparison between the Grizzlies and Warriors now and the Lakers and Thunder back in 2010. The Thunder were on the way, they just weren't quite there yet. We had the results, and I can say that's exactly how I feel about the Grizzlies. 100% on the way. You can actually make an argument, if healthy, there was potential here. Desmond Bane played on a bad back, the jaw injury once again. Regardless, there was clearly some young moments for them throughout the series. And as great as Ja is, he's got to get better. He's got to at least make a marginal improvement on the defensive end, and then he's got to add to his offensive bag. He had the three-pointer going early on in the series. I still think he needs an in-between game. The floater is nice, but I can see potential for him to go to another level and actually get MVP in the future. Overall, it was a good first matchup between them in the playoffs. At some point, I expect this to follow the same script as the Thunder and Lakers did. Whether it's a year or 2 from now, eventually Memphis can overtake them. Today was just not that day. Suns and Mavericks. The #1 seed in the West is no more. And I can say pretty confidently this might be the greatest collapse I have ever seen. The greatest single game collapse I've ever seen. This is one of those series that reminds me of the 2008 Celtics, where the home team was just so dominant every game. Going into game 7, I didn't see a reason for it to be any different. There are not enough words to describe the game 7 fold. I've generally tried to stay away from cliches and saying this team quit or they weren't mentally tough, but I don't even know another way to describe what I saw from Phoenix in a 7th game as the first seed on their home floor against a team that they were better than. This is one of those situations where I feel like the better team, they lost. I was absolutely not counting on Chris Paul disappearing after his 37th birthday. I guess he aged in dog years. And shout out to the Mavericks. I just can't say enough about what they've been able to accomplish with a system that normally has fallen apart by now. Luka is very clearly generational. I was excited to see him play other teams than the Clippers in the playoffs for a reason, but I would never lie and say that I thought they were going to win this series. I said many times I could see them getting 2 games. Luka being able to do what he does, then creating 3-point shots. I thought that was enough to get them 2, maybe 3, but really my prediction was 2. However, in the end, I completely thought the Suns' advantages would win out. I thought there was many things they could do in the pick and roll. I thought Aiden could be more dominant than he was. I thought their defense would be more competent. I thought they would be able to take advantage of Luka more on the defensive end. I will never have words for what I watched last night. What the Suns do in this offseason is a completely different conversation. For now, Luka Doncic is in the Western Conference Finals without another all-star player. That is not to discredit the Mavericks team. This is a well-constructed team, especially to maximize what Luka does, and they're good defensively. So not taking away from the team, but this is one of those squads you would not have seen going as far as they have so far, based off of the talent they would have to go against. I did not think I was going to find myself giving them a legitimate chance to make the NBA Finals despite what they'd accomplished in the regular season, and now I'm not so sure. I feel like I've seen it all. Miami and Philly was one of those series that was just kind of like, yeah, whatever. Half of Joel Embiid's face is broken, he probably won't play. James Harden hasn't been the same since he walked back in the tunnel for the Nets. The Heat in 5 prediction was actually based off of the idea Joel Embiid wouldn't play at all. Him coming back and fighting through those injuries obviously gave them life. I thought in games 1 and 2, turning on the zone, they showed that they had an idea of how they could make the Heat struggle. So in the end, Embiid's return did give them a couple of games, but the Sixers team is clearly missing some sauce. I don't want to just blame James Harden because it's not all on him, but he's not what he once was right now. Personally, I'm giving him one more offseason to see if he can get that back, but this version, it just wasn't good enough. It wasn't able to get by people consistently, the step back wasn't going, no longer drawing fouls at the same rate. So especially in the games that Embiid didn't play, they really needed Houston Harden, and they got Houston Harden for maybe a quarter out of this series. Other than that, the rest was a wash. Tyrese Maxey, while good, was not ready to step into that role just yet. With Harden being weakened, they really needed him to do a lot. The Heat were able to take a lot of defensive pressure that they probably would have had for Harden and apply it to Maxey. And Jimmy Butler has also just been a top player in the playoffs. So the Heat did what they were supposed to do. There was no collapse. They advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals once again. And last but not least, one of the nastiest series I have ever been a part of as a fan. Disclaimer, I have no problem admitting that if Middleton was in this series, it would be different. However, if you followed me long enough, you know how I roll. Injuries are injuries. They happen to every team. They happened last year. They happened the year before that. They happened the decade before that. There's always an injury or two that you can point to that changed the series, which in turn changed the playoffs. As a Celtics guy myself, I know that all too well. I probably dealt with it at every important turn. Hell, right now, missing Robert Williams, I'm assuming that's going to matter eventually. Either way, having to deal with 2022 Giannis 10 years after having to deal with 2012 LeBron, I probably lost a significant portion of my life. But my confidence in Boston to pull out this series never quite wavered. Even when they lost game 5 after I woke up the next morning, I thought to myself, if Boston can get past the emotional damage of losing a game that they had won, they can still win the series because they were in control of that game. They went on to then be in control of game 6 and also, after around 2 quarters, be in control of game 7. Giannis did pretty much everything he could have without Middleton, but in the end, there were stretches throughout the games you could tell there was a shot creator missing. You can only depend on Wes Matthews and Grayson Allen and Brook Lopez and whoever else to hit their open shots so much before you need somebody who can legitimately put the ball on the floor, put pressure on the defense, and give Giannis a rest. By game 7, he legitimately looked gassed. Also, shout out Jason Tatum. I got to see that masterpiece in person. Still, it kind of bothers me going forward because so many of Tatum's shots just seem like tough shots. And when they fall, you get an all-time performance. When they don't fall, you're prone to something like game 3. Major shout out to Grant Williams because despite the gamble that the Bucks took not paying off, watching the game, I was laughing. I liked what Budenholzer did. He essentially said, if we lose to Grant Williams, we lose to Grant Williams. Well, guess what? They lost to Grant Williams. But that was a better idea than losing to Jason Tatum because he scored nearly 50, or letting Jaylen Brown turn into Michael Jordan. And at the beginning of the game, I thought Grant was losing confidence. There were times where he was hesitant to shoot. That's when a timeout was called where I'm going to assume Ime Udoka told him, keep shooting. You've been making it all season. You're a much improved shooter. If you have to miss some and be embarrassed, that's just what it is. It paid off. Boston pulled away, and I don't even have time to recover from the stress of that series. I got on a plane and flew to game 6 to see it in person. Interesting offseason for the Bucks coming up, however. Given the age of Brook Lopez, some of those contracts, very interested to see how they improve the roster. Even though with Middleton, I'm sure they could have made a run. The NBA changes quickly, so I'm just interested. That's another conversation for another day, however. After the second round of the playoffs, we stand at the conference finals with the Mavericks and Warriors, and on the other side, the 2020 conference finals rematch, Celtics and Heat. When I slapped the original bracket together that goes all the way, this is the Eastern Conference Finals I had, but again, I am never going to claim I had the Mavericks making the Western Conference Finals. I will gladly take that L. The Suns folded like a lawn chair. Let me know who you think will be winning each series. What will be our NBA Finals matchup? If you enjoyed this video, also remember to hit the like button and sub, while also hitting the bell next to my name if you want notifications every time a new video drops. Appreciate you watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.